I know it's been like 2 weeks since I've made a video at all, and I'm really sorry for that. Hopefully tomorrow I'm gonna make a couple videos for you guys, so you can I can catch up on missing you guys. I'm so sorry. I got caught up in the new Pokemon game that has been out. You guys know it, X and Y. Well, for the past 2 weeks, I've been playing it almost non-stop, including in my classes. And luckily, most of my classes are blow-off classes, so I don't have to really work, so I can play my games. So this is going to be another review, but it's going to be a little different. I've done ebooks, I've done movies, I've even done a TV show, but this isn't necessarily a book, more like a story. It's in the Demigod Diaries, you know, the book that Rick Riordan wrote after he started the Heroes of Olympus. It's like one of his side books, side stories. It has like 3 or 4 short stories in it. Most of them are about like people inside the Percy Jackson world that have been in the storyline of the actual books. Well, there was one story in here that really caught my eye because Rick Riordan didn't actually write it. It's called The Son of Magic by Haley Riordan, his son. And yes, I know Haley's a bit of a different name for a boy, but hey, it's his kids. I'm not going to make fun of his choices. I'm sure that his son had probably had a few bullies growing up telling him that it was a girlish name, but I'm not going to be one of those people because it's a name, and I guess it could be a unisex name. It's fine. But I was really impressed because the fact is that this whole series of Percy Jackson started as a bedtime story from Rick Riordan to his son after he ran out of classic Greek mythology stories that he could tell his son. So he started to make one up, and it evolved into this massive multi-million-dollar book series. And I guess his son decided that he wanted to put his own input into it, and he wrote this short story called The Son of Magic. Now, I say short story even though it's not really that short. It's maybe like it's a couple chapters worth of words, but it's still fairly short compared to the rest of the books. There are no classic characters from Percy Jackson in it. Sorry guys, I'm a little allergenic right now. It's right out my throat. But it's set in the Percy Jackson world after the time of the Second Titan War. I think it's sometime before the real story has kicked off, like probably sometime between the first and the second book of the Heroes of Olympus series. So it's really good. I really like it, and one of the only things that I found an inconsistency with is the weapon of Alabaster, the main character, or one of the main characters. He is a Greek hero, but he uses a Roman weapon, and I find that kind of weird, but it's alright. So, of course this is going to have spoilers, and I'm sorry that the introduction took so long, but I really felt like it needed it. So, let's get started. Basically, the story starts out on this man named Dr. Claymore. Dr. Claymore is kind of an antisocial author who makes his entire living out of selling life after death. Like, what his views are about it and how he feels that it's impossible to know until you're already dead, which is the reason that nobody knows for sure. He spends his entire life just trying to come up with ways to explain what he thinks and find different things that he can believe in, trying to figure it out for himself because he's honestly curious. But he's very antisocial. He has no friends, no girlfriend, and he pretty much hates everybody. It's kind of funny. So it starts out with him in a seminar that he's doing, promoting one of his books, and he asks the audience, so what do you think happens after death? Like, so he's asking them a question, he's trying to set himself up for something. When this kid raises his hand and pops up, he's like maybe 16 years old, and he looks at him and says, we don't know, you're always mocking anyone who has these ideas about life after death, but you say they're all fake. With all the research you've done, how come you don't know? Why are you asking us? And in his mind, it gives you the perspective of Dr. Claymore, saying that he's really kind of irritated with this kid because he has a response for that because he's set up for people like this kid, but he doesn't like when they do it. So he gives him the general response saying that it's up to you to figure it out, things like that, blah blah blah. After the seminar, he talks to the woman who asked him to speak there for a little bit. She comes off kind of weird. She's creepy. He doesn't like her, but he doesn't like anybody, so he doesn't think much of it. He's out of the seminar and he's walking along when the kid who answered his question comes up to him and asks him what would happen if someone couldn't die, and something like that. I can look it up real quick. Yeah, what happens if someone finds a way to stop death? And basically he responds saying that this is impossible, there's no way that anybody could do that. But he responds by saying that, but what if there was a way? What would happen? And he just keeps going on with it, and he ends up saying that, I need you to figure this out for me. With all the research you've done, I thought you could figure it out, because whether or not you can figure out is life and death for me. And it's really just kind of powerful, and he hands him his business card with a name on it, an address, and a phone number. The name is Alabaster. And so, yeah, Alabaster C. Torrington. And it just comes off as kind of weird. So the next day, he wakes up, he's in his big old mansion, he has all kinds of gates and stuff around it because he likes his seclusion. He gets up, he puts on his business suit because even though he's home, he doesn't like to underdress, he doesn't believe in it. Very insignificant detail, but it shows a lot about his character. Then he heads out, he sets the alarms and stuff, and he heads out to this coffee shop that apparently he goes to any morning. And his only friend in the world is the guy who owns it, sits across the counter, and he spends hours there working on his next book, just eating and drinking coffee and eating pastries. Sorry. So eventually, the person who asked him to speak at the previous seminar comes up to him. Her name is Lamia, and starts saying all these really weird things because the night before he had this dream about the boy who handed him the business card, and something about saying that he had the blessing of Kronos, and that his mother wanted to protect him, and he was talking to her, and she was like this heavenly looking being, so of course you know she's a god, but Dr. Claymore doesn't know this, and saying that, my son, I can't help you, I can help you against so many things, but I cannot protect you against your own sister. So it makes you wonder exactly what's going on. So Lamia approaches him and starts asking him about this dream that she shouldn't know. She shouldn't know that he had this dream, and she shouldn't know about Alabaster, but she's asking all these questions about him, saying that, just give me his address, just give me the card that he gave you, because I need to find him. I have some questions for him, things like that, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't do it because he figures there's something weird going on here. And eventually it gets to the point where he's trying to tell the bartender, the man who owns the restaurant, tell him to make her leave and to get her out of his face, but he's not responding. And she starts laughing because she says that she's able to control the mist really, really well, and that nobody right now can see or hear them. So he's just like, wait a second, what does that even mean? What is mist? What are you talking about? And she goes into all these details about different stuff, and eventually they end up in this huge fight where he barely escapes with his life. He brought a gun with him just because he thought, well, something might happen, who knows. So he brings a gun with him, and it's just a regular gun, so it's not going to kill her, but every time he shoots her, it just kind of like, the pieces that he shoots, they'll like fall off and turn into black sand, but they'll regenerate, which is how you start to think that maybe this is happening between the first and the second book, because those monsters are not able to die. They don't just die. They regenerate almost immediately, like they're not supposed to. And she's doing that. And she basically admits that she's been hunting Alabaster for a long time, and that he's gotten really good at his spells, which makes us start to think, what the heck are they talking about? Spells, enchantments? Because she's using them too. So they get into this huge fight. He finds a truck. He immobilizes her for a little bit, finds a truck, and drives away. He drives over to where Alabaster is. He gets there, and Alabaster's father, who was with him the night before, he answers the door, brings him inside, takes him to Alabaster, and Alabaster does this thing where he touches a card, and the man who was his father, or was playing his father, gets transported into the card, because apparently it's what's known as a mist form. It's a man or being created from mist to serve a purpose, so just to be like a servant. So it goes into all these details about how eventually he says all these different things about how he's been being chased by Lamia for a long time. For some reason that he doesn't know, she wants to kill him, and the only way to stop her is by killing her first, but he can't get her to stay dead. He's been killing her, he's been making her die, and she's been staying dead for a little bit, but now he can't get her to stay dead at all. And what ends up happening is Dr. Claymore just gets really invested in this because he's starting to get the answers that he's been searching for his whole life, like what happens after you die. And one of the things that happens is he's at the house, and all of a sudden all these marks start glowing around his walls, and he's like, wait a second, what's going on? Lamia found them. She put tracking marks onto Dr. Claymore, and was able, and those tracking marks broke all of his defenses, and she found them. And they get into this huge battle where Dr. Claymore and and Alabaster kind of work together. But it ends with, before I tell you how it ends, let me just say some things. During the fight, Lamia starts talking and saying all these different things. She starts boasting, basically. And you find out that she's the one who created the aura of the demigods that is able to attract monsters, basically. In the past, she was wronged by some people, some demigods, and even though she herself is a daughter of Hecate, she told him that she is the one who, she's the reason why demigods are not able to live normal lives. Through her anger, she created the spell that makes all demigods monster attractors, like monster, instead of repellent, they're like aphilic, and it's her fault. Basically, the whole story explains a lot of stuff about the mist and tracking and all kinds of different things, stuff that happened after the Kronos War or whatever. It's just really interesting to find out all this stuff. So the battle ends with, basically, Alabaster gets away, but Dr. Claymore dies. But instead of fully dying, Hecate takes him aside before he's completely dead, just his spirit, and tells him that right now I am giving you a choice because my son likes you and I can tell that you like my son. Your choice is either to continue onwards to death and just go on to where you were going to go. He doesn't like that option because he doesn't think that he would end up in a good place at the moment. So of course he goes with the second, which is basically take over the mist form that Alabaster has, take over that body and use it as a second life. So that way he can help Alabaster and learn more about what he needs to know and just basically have a second chance at life. And of course he takes that option, and the story ends with Alabaster coming to because she transported him somewhere else farther away. He comes to, he's coming out of like this deep sleep or coma or whatever, and he sees Dr. Claymore standing above him, and he's like, come on, we got some work to do here. Something like that. And it's just really interesting, you know, to learn all this stuff about the world, because it makes you think that maybe these characters are going to come into play in the new book. And I started to think they are, because I have only read the first few chapters of the newest book, The House of Hades, and there's already some mentions of a very powerful witch, and it's making me start to think that it's Lamia. And Kate has already come into the story saying that she's going to help them along their way. There's just so many things that make me wonder, are these characters that Haley Riordan wrote into the story, are they going to start coming into play here? And I'm starting to think that they are. As I get farther into the book, hopefully at the end of it, I will start doing reviews on the new series books. But as of now, that's all there is to it. So I'm going to leave it there. I give it a 4 out of 5 because all of Rick Riordan's books are good, and apparently his son is a pretty decent writer too. Thank you, Haley Riordan, for giving us this story and all this information that we've been kind of searching for. So I'm going to leave it there. I'll see you guys next week, and hopefully I'll be able to make a couple more videos for you guys in between. See ya.